In this video, I'll break down the fastest science-based way to get to that sub 3-hour marathon, no matter your starting point. And then I'll give you examples of training weeks for beginners, intermediates, and advanced runners, so you know exactly what to do starting today. My name is Nicklas. I have a bachelor's degree in sports science, I'm a certified physiotherapist, and I'm a former professional triathlete. So first things first. How hard is it actually to break 3 hours in a marathon? A website called the Marathon Handbook looked at more than 19 million marathon results in races worldwide and found that the average time to run a marathon for men is 4 hours, 21 minutes and 3 seconds. And the average time to run a marathon for women is 4 hours, 48 minutes and 45 seconds. Just 4% of male runners and 1% of female runners ever finish a marathon in under 3 hours. So for every 100 people on the start line, you are aiming to beat at least 96 of them. So you're looking to be the outlier in the race. But here's the truth. Even though I do believe that most people can get under sub 3 hours in a marathon, if they commit fully to that task for years, then it's not equally realistic for everyone. Age, gender, genetics, lifestyle, and time to train do still play a role. But if you want to maximize your chances, there are 6 key areas that you need to master: training, running form or running economy, weight and nutrition, pacing, psychology, and recovery. And I'll break each of them down for beginners, intermediates, and advanced runners. So let's look at how to actually train for a sub 3-hour marathon using science. If you're new to running or have just started structured running, then we call that a training age of 0, and you are not ready for sub 3-hour training yet. That's not bad news. It just means that your job is to build a consistent aerobic base. That means getting up to running consistently multiple times every week, building your mileage slowly over time, and most importantly, making running a habit so you don't quit after 3 weeks. Your first marathon goal should just be to learn. Learn about how your body responds to training, nutrition, what gear you like, and how you mentally prepare for a marathon. And if you run fast, then great. But the goal of going to that marathon and completing that marathon should just be to learn as much as humanly possible. Then once you got your first marathon under your belt and you learned about all the nickels and picking up your start number and maybe using some Vaseline for your nipples, yeah, I have to do that because otherwise I get blisters, then we can start to look at training properly for a sub 3-hour marathon. Now, to be honest, in its simplest form, it's actually not that complicated to train to run faster. You just need to train at different intensities with mostly easy work, some medium, and a bit hard. Throw in some strength training, some plyometrics, and some running form drills, and then as much volume as you can handle and recover from without getting injured. And then we have all the details that people like me likes to discuss to gain a few percentages here and there, which is what I'm going to show you how to do now. If you're training consistently and have already finished your first marathon or a couple of half marathons, now you're ready to start training towards that sub 3-hour pace. So how much should you run? A study from 2020 found that running more than 65 kilometers per week made runners about 14 minutes faster in the marathon than those running under 40 kilometers. They also found that doing a long run over 25 kilometers made runners about 13 minutes faster than those who didn't. But won't you get more injuries from running more or running longer? Well, the study found no significant association between training volume or the length of the longest run and the occurrence of running-related injuries. It is worth noting that they probably trained their capacity to handle those kind of numbers, so if you're nowhere near that kind of volume, then don't start there. Build your capacity slowly over time. So what's the takeaway? To run a faster marathon, we can aim to run at least 65 kilometers or 40 miles per week on average. We should also aim to make our longest run of the week at least 25 kilometers or 15 miles and probably even more. But running more is only half the story. The other half is how hard you run. And here is where it gets interesting. A recent scientific review from 2025 found that elite runners improve their VO2 max faster with an 80-20 approach, meaning 80% of their training is easy and 20% is hard. But according to the review, recreational runners do better with a pyramidal plan, which is 80% easy, 15% medium, and 5% hard. So what could that look like in practice? If you're running 60 miles per week, it means that 48 miles should be easy, around 9 miles should be comfortably hard, and only 3 miles should be truly hard. But if you want to gain an edge and you're already training consistently with a structured plan, we can add another level of our progression to our training plan. And that is called periodization. This means you don't just ask, what workouts should I do? But you also ask, when should I do them? Periodization breaks training into different training blocks where we mix up the training intensity. Usually it consists of 3 key blocks. A base phase where we build mileage, aerobic endurance, and efficiency. A build phase where we start to add marathon pace work, threshold intervals, and long runs with fast finishes. And a peak phase where we sharpen fitness with specific marathon pace workouts, then taper to arrive fresh at the start line. And that's how you arrive on race day, not just fit, but in what we call peak race shape. Now we know how to structure our training, so we know what to do when we run. Now we need to look at how we run, also known as running form. There are 2 key things you need to know about running form. First, running form can become a silent killer in the marathon. A meta-analysis from 2024 found that biomechanics alone explain about 4 to 12% of the differences in running economy between runners. That means that over 26 miles, where you're trying to beat at least 96 people on the start line, those small inefficiencies can be the difference between going 2 hours and 59 minutes and missing the mark. Second, it still only is 4 to 12%, meaning your fitness is the most important thing. Running form comes on top. You can go as deep as you like, and if you really want to become a great runner, I highly recommend it. I've spent thousands of hours analyzing running form, but if your training is not consistent and you don't have all the other things dialed in place, then don't start here. Now, I've made a ton of videos on running form right on this channel that you can go watch next if you want, but here are my quick guidelines. If you're a beginner, just focus on getting consistent and then start noticing your running form. Also start noticing other people's running form, like your friends or your family, and then see what they do differently from you, but also look at the elite runners and see what they do differently. You'll find that there are as many running forms as there are people, but that the best runners in the world have a ton of things in common. But at this stage, don't overthink it. Just notice it. When you're already a consistent runner, then it's time to add some tweaks and some changes. The meta-analysis from 2024 found that the biggest gains come from increasing your cadence and reducing your vertical bounce. The easiest way I've found to increase your cadence is just to find a playlist with music that has a beat per minute of 180. 180 is not a magical number, but according to the studies, most recreational runners run around 160 beats per minute, and if they increase their cadence by around 10%, then they have a more efficient running form. Reducing vertical bounce is a bit trickier, but a mental cue that I've found work really well with most people is just to imagine that you step in a piece of gum and now you just have to wipe it off on the floor. This will help you activate the backsides of your legs and really make that stride longer behind you. Once you become more advanced, or if you're troubled with injuries, then you can start looking at the smaller things by filming yourself, then analyzing, then trying to do some drills and some strength training to fix that, then try to have some mental images when you're out running of how to run like you want to run, then film yourself again, and then you just keep going like that for the smaller refinements. I'll leave a link to a video going through exactly how to do that in detail, as well as the most common mistakes, in the description. But now let's discuss the elephant in the room. Because what about weight? How does that affect your marathon time? In 1978, researchers at the University of Georgia tested how much weight affect running performance. They strapped 5, 10, or 15% of extra body weight onto runners using a harness and then sent them off for a 12-minute all-out run. They found that for every extra 5% of body weight, runners slowed down by about 89 meters. That made them about 1.4 seconds per mile slower for every extra pound. This research has led to a popular rule of thumb in the running community. For For every pound of fat that you lose, you can expect to run around 1 second per kilometer faster, or 1 to 2 seconds per mile. But here's the problem. Most people think that losing weight is just about a number on a scale. But for runners, that's only half the story. Because where that weight is located matters just as much, if not more. And when you see the numbers, it's kind of insane. You see, running already costs a ton of energy. Just supporting your own body weight can take up to 74% of your total running energy. On top of that, a study from 1984 found that if you add 4 pounds around your waist, your effort goes up by about 4%. But this is where it gets crazy. If you add those same 4 pounds to your ankles, effort jumps a ridiculous 24%. It's like carrying a backpack on your chest versus holding it at arm's length. And that's why, before we discuss weight loss, we need to address the quick wins first. And that is your socks and your shoes. A study in Frontiers in Physiology found that adding just 100 grams per shoe reduced running economy significantly. So lighter shoes, lighter socks, and even just lighter running clothes will make you run faster. And let's be honest, it's way easier to lose a pound of clothes and shoes than it is to lose a pound of body weight. But what if you do want to lose some weight to run faster? According to a 2025 meta-analysis, the 3 biggest levers for runners trying to drop fat are the following: a sustained calorie deficit, strength training, and protein. But as I've discussed in earlier videos, there's a huge problem for runners called RED-S, or relative energy deficiency in sports. It means that when you underfuel, your body starts to break down. And it's very common for runners to try to chase lower and lower numbers, but at the expense of their health and their performance. So remember, the goal is not to become as light as possible. Don't measure your performance on the scale. Measure your performance on the road. But what about during your marathon? What do you need to eat? According to a scientific review from 2025, for 2.5 hours or more, we need to ingest about 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour. If you're highly trained and your gut can handle it, you might go above 90 grams per hour. But research shows that's mainly for elite athletes in extreme endurance events. And if your gut can't handle that much carbohydrate, you can aim for just 30 to 60 grams per hour, but you can actually train your gut tolerance. So my recommendation would be to actually train your gut in training to be able to handle more, because if you can absorb more carbohydrate, you will have a better performance. When it comes to hydration, research suggests that even a 2% loss in body weight from sweat will reduce your speed and power output. The American College of Sports Medicine recommends 300 to 600 milligrams of sodium per hour during prolonged exercise and 100 to 200 milligrams of potassium per hour. And then we should aim for 500 to 750 milliliters of fluid per hour of exercise, depending on your sweat rate. Most runners ruin their chances of ever going sub 3 hours on race day because they pace their race completely wrong. So how do we pace it correctly? For most people, including myself, our instinct is just to go out super fast, only to slow down by the end. But a scientific review from 2019 found that this strategy usually backfires. Instead, the evidence shows that the best marathoners run even splits, holding a steady pace almost the entire way. If conditions are brutal, like heat or altitude, you might want to start a little slower and try to finish stronger. And if the course has hills, you should adjust your pace to the terrain. Ease off uphill and open up downhill. But the simple rule of thumb is this: make a plan, stick to that plan, and don't get sucked into other people's paces. It's your race and your pace. And if you can, try to aim for that even split and maybe even a slightly negative split, meaning you go a bit faster in the second half of the race compared to the first half of the race. That's how you avoid blowing up at mile 20 and give yourself the best chances of finishing strong, if your mind can handle it. So how do we make sure that our mind can handle the suffering? Here's the truth. A marathon hurts. And no matter how fast or how fit you get, it will always hurt. What separates a fast time from a slower time is not who hurts less. it's who handles the pain better. According to a scientific review from 2023, psychological skills training, things like imagery, goal setting, self-talk, relaxation, mindfulness, can improve performance and consistency in some cases. But the quality of the evidence of exactly what to do is not that great. And I think it comes down to the fact that it is highly individual what motivates you. But through my career as a professional triathlete and afterwards working with athletes of all levels, I will say this. The people I've seen reach the highest goals all have what's known as high self-efficacy, meaning they all believed that they had the control. It was never someone else's fault if they got injured or if they failed. It was always their own, even when that objectively was not the truth. But here's the thing. By taking responsibility for everything, they could take action. They had the power, and so they did. So my advice would be this. No matter your current level, take responsibility for everything. No matter how hard it might seem, because what's the alternative? The alternative is that you point fingers and that it's never your fault. And if it's not your fault, then you can do nothing about it. And when it gets hard, which it will become, then say to yourself, I don't have to run. I get to run. And that will make all the difference. The second part about being able to handle the discomfort is about being properly rested, which brings me to recovery. Now, if you're feeling fresh, are recovering well, and are getting better, then don't overthink your recovery. It's so easy to get sucked into the things that you could do to improve your recovery, but if it's not broken, then don't fix it. But if you're not improving or feeling tired, or you're not getting better, there are 3 things that you can do that move the needle the most: sleep, nutrition, and allostatic load. You probably already know that if you train more, you need to sleep more, and sleep is crucial for health and performance. So I won't go into the details here. If you want to know more, I made a full video dedicated just for that. We've also talked about the nutrition a bit, but to make it simple, we need to aim for about 2 grams of protein per day. Then you need to eat a bunch of vegetables and a bunch of leafy greens. And then you need enough calories to fuel your performance. Allostatic load is a bit trickier. It's basically the sum of all the stress that your body is under, from training, from the lack of sleep, from work, from everything. If it's too high for too long, recovery stops, even if you're doing everything else right, and your performance tanks. In practice, managing it just comes down to managing your stress and your recovery. So plan for easier days, get enough sleep, and don't plan for a business trip or the biggest presentation at work in the same week that you're going for your marathon. Now, knowing the principles is one thing, but what does it look like in practice? Let's map out what a week of training could look like for a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced runner. Don't follow these plans blindly, but use them as inspiration to build your own. For a beginner, the focus is to build aerobic base and consistency. We could just get out the door and try to get some more miles in, but here is another way to go about it. On Monday, we rest or do 30 minutes of cross training, like bike or swim. On Tuesday, we do a 5-mile easy run. On Wednesday, we do a warm-up, then 3 by 6 minutes at threshold pace, and then a cool down. On Thursday, we rest. On Friday, we do another easy run. On Saturday, we also rest, and on Sunday, we do a long, easy run. The focus is just to get the runs in. Consistency beats intensity. We don't worry too much about intensity yet. We just try to spice it up a bit and get our bodies and minds used to doing some hard work, but not a ton. We just need to get the consistency in and make running a habit. If you're already consistent, we can start to add some more intensity. Now we start building to runs over 25 kilometers and use a pyramid distribution. So 80% easy, 15% medium, and 5% hard. On Monday, we rest or do a 30-minute mobility and core routine. On Tuesday, we do VO2 max intervals. Something like 6 by 1K with a 90-second jog in between. On Wednesday, we rest. On Thursday, we do an easy run. On Friday, we do another easy run. On Saturday, we do a threshold run. Something like 2 by 4 miles at half marathon pace with a 5-minute jog recovery in between. On Sunday, we do a long run. We build to that 25 kilometers plus, mostly easy, but with the last 3 miles at marathon pace, just to train our form under fatigue. At the advanced level, we start to do some sharpening for the sub 3. 3, or well under. The goal is higher mileage and marathon pace long runs. A week could look something like this. On Monday, we do an easy run plus some strength training. On Tuesday, we do VO2 max intervals, maybe something like 10 times 1 kilometer with a 90-second jog in between. On Wednesday, we rest. On Thursday, we do another easy run, plus some strength and mobility. On Friday, we do a tempo session with 3 times 10 minutes threshold and a 1-minute recovery in between. On Saturday, we do an easy run including some short 10-second hill sprints. And on Sunday, we do a long run with the last 5 miles at marathon pace. I have not included specific weekly mileage because it depends on who you are and where your starting point is. But use the structure and the principles and then fill it up with your warm-ups and your cool-downs and some running technique drills and all the other things that you need to get faster. And it's simply because I've seen people go sub 3 hours with very little training. Some go sub 3 hours with a ton of training. Some need a ton of intensity and some need none. And this is why having a trainer is so beneficial. It will help you find out exactly what you need to become the best runner you can be. But here's the truth. Even with the perfect training block, there's one thing that could still make running way harder than it should be. And to learn what that is, and more importantly, how to fix it, you should check out this video next.